it has disgusting range.
Yeah, I
You
can see that.
can you can direct wherever this move on to be. So
What is up, y'all? KRCPinto here. Welcome back to Secret Sauce. Today, another X-Men Children of the Atom episode. And today I've got Abdul, also known as AbdulMyDudu, in the scene. Abdul, how you doing today, man?
hi Pinto. I'm doing great today. I'm very excited to be a part of the X-Men CotA introduction series that you have been hosting.
Hell yeah, man. I'm excited to have you on. You know, you're a guy who plays a lot of characters, so, it was hard to pick one for you, but Sentinel, really, really good in this game, and you've got a pretty sick one. What do you like about Sentinel?
Uh, the thing that I like about Sentinel is mostly how unique he is compared to a lot of the heavy characters in this game. He's very fast. His
Oh,
ground movement is exceptionally well. He has great big buttons to control the the screen to kind of like harass people around. And he can also just like throw out projectiles, rockets to control screen. He's a very versatile character and being able to dominate the neutral wherever he is in the screen.
sweet, man. Well, I'm excited to talk about him. I know he's got like a really in-depth kit, and hopefully we can find some sweet stuff in here. So you ready to get started?
Yeah, sure.
All right, let's do it. So the place I usually start is with an elevator pitch. So if you had to sell Sentinel to somebody in just one sentence, what would you tell them if you're trying to convince someone to play him?
I would say he is just a big a big robot that that hits you for 1,000,000 tons of damage. that's 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 the core part of him.
Love that. He's got crazy damage in this game.
Yep, he has very good damage all around.
It,
Probably one of the highest in even in just a normal sense.
yeah, is it because he's like single hits do a lot of damage, or his combo routes just like really powerful, or a little bit of
Like,
both?
okay, so let's say if I were to Colossus have a lot of defense, but just this alone, HK into Rocket Punch did this amount of damage. And if I were to like do flight mode stuff, he can do a lot of damage before even getting to the part of stun. And once you get to that part, he can pretty much just finish off the opponent like after with like a grab into like a follow up. Um, yeah, he got especially he has one of the best. Let me switch my screen to a lighter character. So let's say for Cyclops. So this button in particular, standing MK, is really good as a ground button and also just against opponent who is on the air for the most part. So if you were to like say hit them like this, follow up with HK. If you're close to the corner, you can convert it into a lot more damage and you can just ride off stun there. So yeah, in terms of damage wise, almost no one competes him for the highest for the most part.
Good lord, yeah, he kind of deletes you. Jeez, that's wild.
Yeah, matches can go by really fast before because you get hit by his frying pan. Just just a few of his heavy buttons could literally deplete your health really quick if you're not careful at all.
Man, that's crazy. Sweet. All right, so this might be a tricky one for you. What is your favorite move of his and why?
Personally, it definitely will be jumping HK. Great button to with overall. You can whiff it twice on the way up and down.
Dude, it's doing so much damage just by itself.
Yes.
Good lord.
Oh, just like that already did around like 30 to 40 damage. And HK is just so used. It's just so good to use in combo too. And mostly it's also just the fact that it can also combo itself into HP. You could do something like this if you were to be in like flight mode. Overall, just a really great jump button for him, and you can do wonders with this button. And and there's almost not that much that your opponent can do about it. It's very hard to contest unless you're like directly underneath him. You will most likely lose to this button all of the time.
Yeah, that hitbox looks pretty rough to deal with. It's a
Yes,
lot of red.
A great air to air and a great air to ground too. It's ridiculous.
So let's talk about Sentinel in neutral. He's got projectiles. He's got a lot of ways to move around the screen. What do you like to do with him in neutral? What's your kind of strategy for it?
Usually, let's say when I'm in ground, so Sentinel, I would say on ground he is good, but I would say he does kind of um he's not nearly as impressive as he is compared to when he's on the air, but he's still really good on the ground. He's got like the the infamous HP, which he shoots out the beam.
Right.
It reaches far, and if you're fast enough, you can combo into it. Then you have crouching HP. Unlike which like MVC2, which it shoots out beam, it shoots out a rocket. It's also really good for just like harassing, similar to like Cyclops HP. You can like cancel into super jump. You could really make your opponent sit down if they are not real and respect this button. It cancels really fast, and then you got like his rockets, which is crouching forward and knee kick. So the light kick version is basically 3 drones. The MK version basically sends out 3 upwards, and then the heavy version which sends out bombs. So each 3 of them have different variant and what they do and how you can like control it in the neutral. So let's say for the light version, you can move up and down on how you want it to move. For the medium version, each time you press MK again, it will basically tracks the opponent. So if I say I press all 3, it will move straight down instead of going straight forward. And then the heavy version, basically, now when you cast it, usually the bombs will drop automatically, but if you were to hold it, you can delay the bomb setup. So what you could like do is if someone were to get hit by the whole thing, you can follow up with an easy HK into rocket punch into stun. And then I guess there is also this crouching HK. A generally pretty good sweep button and reaches really far. Oh, so you can kind of like tech trap them into rocket punch. It's not real if your opponent rolls immediately, but if they are slow on rolling or against opponents who are slow to wake up, you can easily combo this into for some really nice damage. And then you have the aforementioned standing MK, just an all-around great button to launch your opponent and just even knock them down out of the air.
He fills up so much space. Good lord.
Yeah.
Okay.
He can just make you respect him on the ground a lot too.
I have a question about the medium drones. So if you tap medium again, you said they start tracking, right? But you have to do that individually. So if you just tap medium once, the lowest one will go track them, but the other two will stay on their trajectory straight across the top.
Yep.
So it
You have to
stops
press
them
it
from,
like.
so it stops
Sorry?
it stops them from jumping and also homes in on them on the ground.
Yeah, you can technically basically. Well, you can. Well, the opponent can kind of reactively just jump out of this, but if they were to slow react, they have to basically like kind of at least block one of it at least.
That's wild.
All right, I forgot to mention, but his grab are really good. He has two grabs, basically the MP and HP. They both have really good range.
Oh
You can
man.
easily follow up like this, or in the HP. HP has a really interesting thing you could do. So both of them can like combo it into opponent. While HP grab, you can like how to say direct where they go, where you can throw them. It's very unique in all 8 directions. And once they get into this signal, if you press down heavy punch again, you can like grab them like this.
Right.
When you do this, oh sorry, you can even like jump and then launch them.
Can they mash out of that the way they can with like Juggernaut's OTG grab?
Yep, they can mesh out of this very quickly, so you have to quickly release it if you want to combo into it.
That's a quick
yeah,
stun though. Jeez.
There's also another way this is more or less guaranteed. So if our opponent get hit by body splash, this is unique to Sentinel. You see how they are stunned on the ground compared to normally when they are standing.
Right.
This is achieved when you hit someone with this and get into stun. That is also one way to get to the ground grab.
Huh. That move's interesting. I don't think I've ever seen that move before. Is that something you use a lot? Like, are you trying to like combo into it, or is it like to catch people jumping underneath you?
It's good if say, okay, so I think we can start talking about his air button. So yeah, so this body splash is down HP where Sentinel comes down like this. Also, you can like cancel it into and then do it again. He can do this a lot of times when you reset it into Rocket Punch. You kind of like do it a few times again. It's good to like kind of prevent the opponent from coming up to you and anti-airing you basically. It's a great, although after once you hit your opponent with it, you cannot move anymore unless you cancel it into flight mode. It's just a really good button to just deny your opponent from just trying to come up to you.
You want to keep talking about air buttons?
Yeah, sure. So Sentinel has particularly 4 buttons I would say really good for him. So first up we have HP. This button is really good to just kind of like say if your opponent is kind of trying to get up to you, but you are in kind of like a somewhat distance a bit, you can like just flat out deny them like this.
It looks
It's
so
a really
funny.
good buttons to just kind of also on the way down, and you can follow up with a rocket punch if it hits. You have HK, which I mentioned just now, just an all-around really good button. That's about the same property with HP, but HK allows you to go into much more complex combos or free combos compared to what HP can do. And then you got the MK, which is what everybody loves about Sentinels, the boot. This is, while HK is my favorite, I think MK is his best normal overall. Air and ground. It has disgusting range.
Yeah, I can see that.
You can direct wherever this move on the beat. So neutral, it goes like this. If you aim it down, it goes all the way downwards. If you aim forward, you can just like slap people almost almost full screen. And then outwards is just really good to like just kind of kick people out of the air. This button is so good. If you use it in flight mode, it's very oppressive.
Yeah, jeez.
Like how you would commonly see how people does it in NPC2. It's about the same. Albeit it is well, you can't consistently convert it into rocket punch. It's just really good of a button overall to just dominate the neutral.
Yeah, you're not getting past that.
And
Jeez. The thing's huge.
yeah, it's hard to contest. You could even like do like standing, so you can like instantly go for like a instant overhead setup in a sense. To like kind of just make a like a quick overhead when the least how to say expect. You see that?
Yeah. Good lord.
It's but yeah, MK is just a god button. And then you have this button. This is down HK. So when he does that, he kind of like sends out like as if his feet suddenly turn into a fan. It can hit for a few times. It doesn't do a lot of damage compared to just normally using HK or HP, but it has a greater downward spiral that you can like just kind of like unexpectedly make your opponent not expect it when it comes. And then you have MP. MP, if you just whiff it normally, it's just a slamming M down. But if you hold down while you're doing it, he can go into like a sort of like hover mode a bit. During this time, you can like wave it into other air buttons like HK or HP. This is really good if you were to hover it up to the ground. You can do some really insane stuff like this. It makes now the ground game suddenly becomes even more scary for your opponent because they can't really do too much against like this. So hover is just really good overall to like kind of deceive your opponent while also just kind of like letting you dominate in a range where your opponent would not expect at all. So yeah, Sentinel is just a mix of everything, and he excels at a lot of them in general.
So I'm just thinking of this from like the opponent's perspective. He has so many variable buttons, like different things you can do. I can't even imagine having to deal with this character and think about all that. Like you got held J2MP that's gonna hover and come down on your head with whiff stuff, and then you've got what was the other one? All the different angles of jump MK like to think about, and then like the different drone angles and versions. Oh my gosh, like fighting him must be a nightmare. Good lord.
A lot of characters do not enjoy fighting against him. Even the top characters like Omega Red, Wolverine, Colossus, they do not wanna whiff carelessly against him. Sentinel can make you punish really hard for the mistakes you do. You have to be very careful. So yeah, he has flight mode. So flight mode costs unlike the game later where he is on, it costs us meter. For some reason in this game it costs us almost half the bar. But for Sentinel particularly, it's still pretty good overall. You can cancel almost any normal into flight mode in general. So say if you wanna like escape yourself from minus situation, you can just like do something like this and then unfly again to keep back into a safe position. just a really good thing in general, but it is a little bit meter costly. But for him in particularly, I don't think he minds so much because the super he has is uh he only has one super in this game. Now that I forget to mention, is this one, Plasma Storm. If you were to mash it, you can charge it longer, and then he can send out more wave. Unfortunately, this super is not as great as, like, you know, Hyper Sentinel Force, and the combo routing to it is usually a bit limited in general. But it is solid if you just want to kind of like chip your opponent out. It does deal a solid amount of chip. If you mash it slowly and steadily, you can charge it to a maximum like this. Although the opponent can just kind of like stall in the air a bit, or even interrupt you while you're doing it, which will like, cancel the whole thing. But it's not bad of a super, but usually for Sentinel, you mostly want to save your meter to counter throw your opponents, or just escape it in throws in general compared to using the super.
Right. So the flight costs half the bar, but the unfly was free, right?
Yep, unflying is free. There's nothing else you have to do.
Another thing I noticed is that while you were hitting Cyclops in fly, you were building meter back, so it doesn't lock you out from rebuilding your meter.
Nope, you can build meter back.
Okay, cool. So if you make your fly count,
yeah.
If you make your fly count, then the meter loss isn't really that big of a deal, right? Because you built it back in, what was that, like 4 hits? Something like that?
Yeah, even if the opponent were to be blocking, you could still get a decent amount of back. See, yeah, he got some great meter gains. Sentinel is one of those characters that can build meter really fast, just because how much he can get you to respect the things he does, which is crucial in a game like Children of the Atom, where having meter or not could mean life and death for you.
Let's move on to pressure situations. So, you know, we've talked about how much he can dominate space in the neutral game. What happens when you get your opponent blocking? What are you doing to make them really sweat when you get to run your offense?
Usually, I would like to just kind of like do, say, MK, and then just start moving around. Just kind of like... The send down rocket punch is just also really good to just... Hold on, let me review this. So you can always get your opponent to do like this if you do downward rocket punch. It has very long reach, and then you can just like throw rocket, and your opponent will have to come to you. Specifically, the bombs are just really good to get your opponent. They must come to you if they wanna like engage to you. Even MK rockets too in general, they have great coverage. And then you could also do something similar to what you do in MBC2, which you then cancel beam flight into beam again. But it is a little bit limited compared to what you can do for free instead. But it's still, you can just do super jump again, something like this, or maybe even something like this. Sentinel mainly, more than pressuring your opponent, he mainly wants you to come to you, so in a way he makes your opponent really tries to engage you, but at the same time he will make you pay for just trying to get to him. That's the kind of beauty that Sentinel can really force your opponent into.
You know, you showed us earlier that you can get a bit of a mix-up going using the jump medium kick.
Yep.
Because he has flight cancels, that seems like it's probably prominent in a lot of situations. Does he end up going for a lot of like high-low scenarios? Does he have any lows? I don't even know if we've talked about that yet.
Ah, lows. His low is his low mainly pushes him very far. He does have lows, but it's usually pushes him very far. So like crouching LP, crouching LK, and mainly crouching MK and crouching HK. I would say the lows that you mainly want to use in neutral is crouching LP and crouching LK. Sometimes you would do this into comboing into crouching HP, which is the rocket. And crouching HK is overall just good for just sweeping your opponents down. Yeah, these are the lows that you mainly use for him.
So can you create like kind of nasty scenarios where you're like using a low, flight canceling, and hitting with a high right after? Like, does that happen fast enough that that works as like a mix-up scenario?
You absolutely can. So I could try like this.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm picturing. Like, does that come up
Yeah.
very often? Is that something like you do in a match?
I sometimes go for this, or I could basically go for something like this. You cannot super jump cancel instantly while you're doing normal sun block, so this is where flight cancel really comes into handy. But yeah, unfortunately Sen is not the craziest mix-up character because his normals does take a bit of time to come out, and when you go into flight mode, you don't act instantly compared to later games.
Gotcha.
Although you can act instantly even when you unfly. You don't have to go into a really weird state where where people will come fly. In Children of the Atom, he can just whip buttons again, even unflying.
Got it. Okay, so that makes more sense to me now why you'd prefer like a spaced out, kind of forcing them to come to you game plan over and in their face, making them block weird stuff game plan.
Yeah, he's not a guy with a lot of like fast buttons. He mainly just, kind of want to keep a distance because that's where he truly strive.
Got it. Okay. Cool. Well, it seems like a fairly straightforward approach. Is there anything else pressure or mix-up wise that you want to go over?
Let me think.
Any good ways to set up his grabs since his grabs are pretty good?
You for grabs, he mainly just kind of wanna, if your opponent is like blocking, and then because of just how fast his dash is, so you could kind of say if there were to be like blocking stuff later, and then you can just kind of come up to them and you can mix your movement a bit then into grab.
So it's more about being unexpected than anything else?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So next, let's look at knockdown scenarios. So this has been one, as I've been interviewing people, that's a little variable by character. Some characters have like some Okazemi situations. Other ones prefer to go into like some sort of OTG route. What does Sentinel like to do when he gets a knockdown?
Sentinel knockdown basically has only one, which is crouching HKs. When you hit your opponent after the second hit, usually the opponent can just kind of instantly roll away. So say if I were to do this. Oops. So Sentinel's crouching HK knockdown is a bit special in the fact that because it does 2 hits, the opponent will get into a state where they instantly wake up. So unfortunately, outside of maybe say if they didn't know this, you can hit them for light rocket punch, but if not, the opponent usually can block it. There's not too much he can follow after crouching. Maybe at best you could kind of call rocket to get them to blocking, but After that, not too much.
Hmm. Okay. So, is it preferable to maybe like jump back and take back to more of a full screen setup like you were doing earlier and get them to back in that scenario where they have to come to you?
Yeah, for the most part, cause he gets pushed back really far if you try to use his light buttons in general. The best you could maybe like do is you do rockets, and then you just like do something like this, and then you back off to do more beams, more rockets. But yeah,
Huh.
he mainly
Interesting.
just wanna maintain a distance.
But you did use the OTG grab. So how often do you actually go for that off the ground grab when that comes up? Is that something you do frequently, or is it kind of just every now and then?
Against slower characters with much slower wake ups like Cyclops, I do try to go for that. Oh yeah, alright. I forget to mention something really crucial.
Oh, okay. What's
Um,
up?
sorry. So about this grab, I completely forget. Something really weird about this game is that he shares the same problem with Colossus. So say if you were to do this, watch as how nearly 75% of his meter gone.
Oh, wait, what?
Yeah, this is something really weird. Exclusive to him in Children of the Atom is that Sentinel, for some reason, when you go for this downgrade, it just depletes all your bar. Nearly all of your bar. The weird part is that you can still do this without any meter at all. Yeah, as long as you have any meter, it will deplete any any meter you have left. I guess this might just be my thoughts, but I feel like maybe they don't want people to kind of encourage you to go for this follow-up a lot of the time, so maybe they kind of want to make you use this move but with like a pay to it. But a lot of the times you're not likely to going to get this grab because of just how fast your opponent can just roll out of it in
Hmm.
general. Even Cyclops or Psylocke can just roll out of it if they mesh fast enough. Yeah, it's a bit of a weird thing with HP grab, down HP grab in general.
Yeah, that is weird. Okay. So yeah, you would really wouldn't want to do that unless you're closing out the round with it, right?
Yeah, or you don't really have much meter to begin with, then you can follow with it.
Gotcha. Yeah, like if you're at like 10 or whatever, it doesn't really matter, right?
Hmm. Although this is still useful if, say, like I mentioned just now, body splash. In this state, since there's nothing much you could really follow up, so in the sense that this grab allows you to kind of at least make you follow up stuff again. It has usefulness, but it does comes with a cost, basically.
Gotcha. I've seen with a couple characters in
Mm-hmm.
knockdown scenarios that they can kind of do like a super jump and hover around and use a button that kind of ambiguously crosses up. Does Sentinel have any options like that? Like, are any of his air buttons good for just kind of falling into them out of a knockdown scenario?
Uh, hmm. He can super jump after doing it, but since he's usually sent off pretty far for the most part, and his buttons mainly comes down very straightforward down. He doesn't have, say, like ambiguous things that the other characters can do. So for the most part, it's rather tame.
I didn't realize until just now. Does his sweep hit twice no matter what? I thought before you were
Yep,
pressing it twice, but I noticed in the last round you're just pressing it one time, and it comes out twice.
it always comes out twice. I forgot to
Interesting.
mention, sorry.
No,
Yeah,
that's okay. Yeah.
it's a two hitting move.
Gotcha. Okay, so now this makes more sense to me that like he's kind of undoing his knockdown himself that way, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a weird property where the first hit knocks down, but then the second hit kind of allows the opponent to instantly able to wake up.
Hmm.
Combat
Okay.
this later will be changed to basically the second hit knocking down to kind of like give him a better chance at OTGing. But yeah.
Can he cancel after the first hit, like into flight or anything like that?
Uh well technically you can go something like this. You can cancel the first hit, then something like that.
Huh.
You can go for something like that, but I honestly probably would not want to raise that much resource for it. So I usually just go with this, and if they are not, if they don't know the knowledge, you can go for the crouching leg punch for relatively nice damage.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's talk about what happens when Sentinel has to defend. So it's a fighting game. Sometimes you gotta block. Does Sentinel have any useful things he can do on defense?
Ah, alright. So unfortunately, Sentinel being the biggest body in this game, he's suspect to a lot of specific situation and combos about him. So I can't demonstrate it very well, but say Sentinel, unfortunately, because a lot of his startup moves, even his like takes a while to beat. So say if Cyclops were to do like this, there's not that much he can really like challenge back until maybe to like just kind of do that. So if Cyclops could keep doing the crouching cancel HK, Sentinel will basically be in a state where he really cannot escape unless you mash 3 kick super jump. And something very big weakness about flight mode is so if if Cyclops were to keep doing this, you are basically stuck in a forever block stun mode that you cannot escape. A lot of characters can do this to Sentinel.
Dude,
So
what?
yeah, that is one of Sentinel's major weakness. Is that it's just the fact that he's very susceptible to fast cancel buttons that gets him into stun lock situation. The most he could try and do is like say if Cyclops were to be doing this, the most you can do is try to mash grab
Mm.
and try to hope you could escape the situation. But this is not very consistent, and if you don't get the grab, you can still get hit and you will die from there. So unfortunately, Sentinel does not have that much defense when it comes to just trying to maybe like retaliate back. The most he can do is like super jump and scare and hope for the best and just kind of like reposition. Sentinel also does not really like to maybe deal with a lot of close-up situations. Say if the opponent can go for some really ambiguous instant overhead, something like this.
Yeah, it's catching him on the way up, huh? Because he's so tall.
Yeah, he's really tough. So if you were to be in corner, you can also get suspect about like something like this, jump back, IOH, and then say against someone like Storm. Now this is where something he really have to be careful when lingering on the air is that some characters can combo him really easily because of how heavy his body weight is. So say if I were to be not careful and just kind of swinging around in the air for too much, Storm could go for something like this. See how
Oh
see how
no.
it's so easy for Storm to just abuse that standing MK to just combo Sentinel from anywhere. That is also one of Sentinel's major weakness. other like Psylocke, Cyclops can also do something similar. And then you also have things like very, how to say, super heavy Oni exclusive combo, something like, oops. You can just like infinite combo and then, or for Storm, you could also just kind of combo. For some reason, hit stun on super heavy characters last a lot longer than compared to lighter characters in general. So yeah, being super heavy does have some benefit, but it does comes with a lot of weakness too. They are very suspected to a lot of like just fancy situation that you will get yourself into. So yeah, unfortunately, Sentinel does not really have a lot of answers against aggressive opponents, and or if they know how to like abuse his weakness, you just have to hope you find an opening and jump out for the most part.
So definitely just keep them away then. Don't let them in.
Yeah, you want to maintain a distance basically just to not let them get into you so easily, but at the same time you can still do the things you do. So he has a lot of basically specific matchup where he has to be extra careful, where there are matchups where he does not have to be that cautious. So yeah, he has some matchup where he would just outright have to be a lot more careful than usual.
Let's talk about matchups real quick. So I know you main multiple characters. You play a good bit of the roster. What matchups do you prefer Sentinel for? Like say you're playing in a tournament. When are you gonna pick Sentinel?
Usually I wanna play against opponents that either cannot out harass me in my game can or does not have that great of a mobility. So say if I were to deal against like Spyro, Silver Samurai, Iceman, Colossus. Now these are characters that I definitely would wanna bring Sentinel into against opponents like Storm, Cyclops, Psylocke, Wolverine, Omega Red in particular. Now those I might be a little bit hesitant to bring Sentinel into, because Sentinel will still somewhat struggle against them because of just how fast they can kind of get around his stuff and make you respect, oh, what's the thing they would do to you. So yeah, you can still bring Sentinel against everyone, but there are definitely some matchup you have to be really careful with. In particularly two opponents, I would say Omega Red and Storm he have to be the most careful against, just because these two abuse his biggest weakness in general, and the things those two characters can do exclusively to Sentinel and Colossus too.
Let's talk about something real quick. I don't think we mentioned this in the pressure, but I just want to talk about it a little bit. So Sentinel's one of those characters where all his normals do chip, right?
Yep.
So how often does that play into your game plan? Like, are you looking to put people in situations where you're just kind of chipping them into oblivion very often?
Yeah, for the most part, you want to be the one, like just kind of be on the offense, because it does kind of add up after a while, because as much as it only does 1 damage, but if your opponent gets hit by rockets, it does chip away at them quite a bit. Even just like rocket punch does quite a bit of chip damage, as you can see. Sorry. But yeah, chip damage is exclusively most to Sentinel, Colossus, Silver Samurai, and Omega Red. These 4 characters are the ones that have chip damage when using their normals.
I think Juggernaut too, right?
Yeah, Juggernaut too.
So do you like have a point where you kind of have them like, are you looking for a checkmate scenario, kind of the way like Cyclops would do with his one super that chips, where like once they get to a low enough health, you're just kind of looking to chip them out? Like, is that a strategy you fall to often?
Okay, now here's the thing though. Chip damage, chip normals though. While the chip you, they do, if your opponent say to have like 1 HP left, chipping normals does not KO them. So if
Oh,
you wanna like KO them, you will have to use a special like rocket punch, the drones or so. So basically, if I say I were to have chipped them enough, where they would mostly die. So mainly I kind of wanna like fish for a rocket punch or like drones to kind of finish them off. So yeah, or even my super too. It does a lot of chip damage. Even not even instantly releasing does quite a bit of chip damage.
gotcha. Okay, so that's kind of what you have to lean to, is doing something different. So like once they're, like a sliver of
Yeah.
health left, back off special or super. Like that's what's gonna get you the round.
Yep. Sentinel usually has not much of a problem closing the round if you manage to get your opponent this low.
All right, Abdul. So I need to see some sauce. Sentinel has a lot of crazy stuff. I want to see a sick combo. Whatever you like to do best, something you think looks sweet or it's fun to execute. Let's see a cool combo.
Alright, so I'll give you the bread and butter. The one where he goes all the time, and what he usually will wanna go is standing MK, stand jump HK into rocket punch. Just a solid um, combo, and then you could do like if you were to be in combo, you could do something like this, pre-stun. It does a lot of damage. And then, okay, say if we were to be, so I'm gonna get them stunned. Depending on the characters where you could do some really cool stuff. Or
Dude,
you could go for something like this. Oops, sorry. And then if you were to against like super heavies, you could go for something like this. Oops. Then there's this combo that I like to do, especially against super heavy. So okay, flight mode. This is probably one of my favorite combos to do with Sentinel in general.
dude, he's got a lot of loop options, huh?
Yeah, he is very versatile when it comes to look. There is one. Let me see if I could do. Like you could also like just hover. You have to hover this really low. Let me try. Yeah, he can do some really nasty combos. There's just a lot of way for him to do his combos.
How does the execution feel on these? Because you're doing most of them like pretty much right away. Like you didn't take a lot of attempts on those.
I would say the tricky part is usually sometimes you have to adjust your timing depending on their height. So let's say because his combos, while flashy, does require some um how to say adjustments. So if I'm very high, I have to try and delay as much as I can to kind of continue my loop. After a while, if you get used to it, it's not very difficult, but his combos needs a lot of times just need a lot of like just kind of like self adjustment to keep your opponent just stay there, basically.
Gotcha. So you got to know
Against
what you're doing.
Yeah, against lighter characters, it's a lot harder to like try to go for the infinite. You could also like mix flight mode into it, like what I showed just now in against like Colossus. He got some cheap infinite, so like against mainly just himself and super heavies in general. He also have just some straight easy closer if you really just want to deck out the damage like this. But yeah, there is a lot more variants of Sentinel loops you could go for. But for the most part, for infinites and wise, this is usually what you want to go. So you mixing in with some flight cancels to kind of readjust yourself to do more launchers and all that.
Gotcha. Well, sick, man. Those were awesome.
Think that's about it. Just mainly in Sentinel, you just wanna kind of like just kind of whiff your stuff, and then occasionally do something like this. You just kind of wanna put a lot of things in the screen just to make them aware. But at the same time, you don't wanna like stretch out your offense too much so that you get yourself exposed. But overall, he's just very free to do what he pleases to do, just because just the insane thing he can do in general.
All right, man. Well, we're done. You did it.
Haha. But yeah, so if I highly recommend people trying out Sentinel. He's really fun in general, the things you can do. And you can just be a really big bully using just flat out using him. And I think overall he's also a very good character to start out with because he's not that complex despite a lot of his tools you have in your in your in your position, but you can just get away with just whiffing heavies at air all day, and you won't get punished that much unless your opponents know how to. But yeah, Sentinel, very fun, high damage hitter, and just everyone's favorite big robot.
Yep, no doubt about that, man.